VikesNow. I am Dustin Baker. I had three wisdom teeth removed yesterday morning, and that's why we didn't really record yesterday, but we are back. I'm here with a couple Basset Hounds and Josh Frey. How are you, kind sir?
I'm doing good, man. I guess we're both just battling through stuff right now. You with your wisdom teeth, me with my power, my internet. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for
been an interesting week.
to set the table, we didn't think we were going to be able to record today because Josh lost power, but then miraculously it showed back up, and we are here just in time for Vikes Now. So we are in the obligatory hype season for training camp. No player can do any wrong. If you don't hear anything about a guy, that's probably the only negative about him. Otherwise, you get all these real cupcake highlights of dudes catching passes, doing the thing. And so, what I've called Josh to the show today is to go through about five players who are already turning heads in Vikings training camp. Does that sound like a fair assignment, sir?
That sounds great to me. Let's get through
All right. And then
it.
I have this puppy basset hound in my lap that I want to show that I haven't showed to the viewers yet. This is Lafayette, if I can get him here.
Lafayette.
Yep. He's named after uh Aristocats Disney movie. Uh
Oh, okay.
yep, there's a basset in there that has a small part. You got to look at the camera there, dude. Look at the camera. Look at the camera.
There you
There
go.
you go. Yep, he's got ears to die for. They are like 8 or 9 inches long, so he's just hanging out today.
Cutie. Cutie.
All right, my dog. Let's see. Why don't we go? It doesn't matter in the order of importance you rank them, but players that are already turning heads in Vikings training camp. We've had 2 days of on the field practice. Go.
I'm going to get started with Jaron Hall. It looks like that guy, fifth round pick out of BYU. It was a little bit of a question mark as to what he'd exactly be able to do in his rookie season. I was kind of hoping he'd be able to put a little bit of pressure on Nick Mullins for that backup QB spot behind Kirk Cousins this year. And it seems like he's doing that so far. There's a couple clips floating around on Twitter of him just making some really nice throws. And if he can put some pressure on Nick Mullins and be prototypical that young QB of the future for the Vikings, if they landed that guy in the fifth round, it seems like it's going so far. It seems like it's going well so far.
And that is a large deal that he looks the part because that's what we wanted to see early on. Because if he didn't
Yeah,
look like anything, then he truly is just a lottery ticket late rounder. Now it's way too early to crown him or
definitely.
whatnot, but he's doing the right thing. So in theory, by the time the Vikings are be ready to hand him the scepter, he'd be 26 years old. So naturally, he already looks mature, but it's an important development to know that the guy at least has a little bit of it because there's a decent chance that next February and March, we're going to need a quarterback. Is that assessment correct?
That it seems like that so far. I mean, between what Kirk Cousins said at a mandatory mini camp earlier this spring that he doesn't expect a new contract until March, and then it kind of popped up again on either Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't remember which day exactly, but contract talks again popped up, and he just kind of played it off like, "Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. It's probably going to, if it happens at all, it'll probably happen next spring, stuff like that." So it doesn't seem like that they're too urgent to get a new deal in place, which with the restructure that they did this
Mm-hmm.
spring kind of makes sense. So I wasn't really expecting a new contract this summer at all. So we'll see what happens next spring. But with Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, Daniil Hunter, TJ Hawkinson, all these guys needing new contracts, somebody's not going to get a new contract. And I don't know. I feel like the 35 going on 36-year-old QB, that might be the short end of the stick there for him.
And I think Cousins is so cool about it, so to speak. There's no sense of urgency about it because he's said 100 times that he loves the Vikings and if it's up to him, he'd
Mm-hmm.
stay here forever. On the other hand, and this would give him security as well, if he is not coveted by the Vikings next off season. He knows that he's going to do his usual tricks this year, which are 30 touchdowns, 4,200 yards. Some team is going to pay him 40 to 45 million dollars. Right now, if you can believe it, at 35 million per season, he's criminally underpaid. Joe Burrow is going to get a fat ass extension in mere weeks, and Cousins will be the 15th highest paid quarterback per AAV. And that's what folks have wanted this whole time he's been here, just to be paid fairly, which we usually decide is between like the 8 and 12 range. But now the market has passed him by because he didn't get an extension. So I think that's why he's cool with it. He knows that he's going to be handsomely taken care of somewhere, and he likes it here. So if he balls out, which he plans to do, he's in good shape. All right, Jaron Hall, which is a very positive development for rookie quarterback. Who's your next guy that has turned heads in 2 days at camp?
I'm going to go with a guy next that hasn't necessarily been on the field at all for the Vikings, but I do think we have to talk about him, Daniil Hunter, with the fact that he decided to report to camp. He's doing a prototypical hold in instead of the traditional hold out, and basically he's showing up, but he's not practicing. But at the end of the day, I mean, it would be really easy to go into this and say that this is a bad thing for the Vikings. He's not on the field. He's not getting those reps in that are vital during this time of the year with a new defensive coordinator. You need to have this guy on the field practicing. But I feel like this is probably the best case situation right now for the Vikings with Hunter, having him in the building at least, basically, yeah, being able to talk to the coaches with the front office, especially during a hectic time like training camp where they probably don't have a ton of time to have these sorts of discussions as it is. But having him in the building and just being able to talk with people. And I think an underrated part of this is if he does decide to go through some sort of practice, like the warm-ups, everything, making sure that he's not only in shape still, but completely healthy. Like he is able to get the full attention of the training staff as well. And if he has any bumps and bruises along the way, they're going to be able to fix him up and have him ready to go. So I think that ultimately this is probably best case scenario for him and for the Vikings, because not only is he not getting those fines, he's able to talk to everybody. He's getting all the attention from the training staff. And if it was a holdout, there'd be none of that. There'd be like probably spotty conversations here and there. It's like, yeah, maybe we'll get to that at some point. But right now, I think that this is probably a very promising sign for the Vikings.
And I think him being there, and whether or not it's just a vehicle to avoid the fines, it really pushes the envelope. Like, right. I think it would make it awkward. Even on McKinney on this show, the Believe in Vikings show that aired on this station yesterday, he said that it would just be kind of weird if the guy is there doing nothing. Like I don't know if it sets a poor example for youngsters, but a lot of the guys who haven't been around long are probably like, what the hell is this guy doing? It's just chilling over there. So I think it brings the conversation to the forefront where you have the team's best player just riding the bicycle or whatever it is he's doing. It kind of, puts the feet to the fire, whether it's with Kwesi or Hunter's representation, to say, he's here. He wants to be here. He loves these guys. Let's get something done. And I think even, I can't remember if you alluded to this a couple minutes ago, but Brian Flores met with Hunter too.
And new scheme.
And that. Yeah. And that's positive. And I'm guessing that Flores is salivating to deploy Hunter, because I know we've heard some, maybe this guy will even be on your list. Patrick Jones allegedly looks pretty good, and that's wonderful. But at the end of the day, you still need that oomph from Daniil Hunter, because otherwise you're rolling into this thing with DJ Wanham and Patrick Jones. And I would, if let's say we get there to week 1 and it's DJ Wanham and Patrick Jones, like there's no Yannick Ngakoue, there is no lesser. There is no more underwhelming twosome edge rusher in the league than those guys. And it's not a shot to them. They could turn out to be ballers, but on paper, that ain't it, especially for a playoff contending team. So Jaren Hall and then Daniil Hunter, because of the lack of on the field snaps. Who's number 3?
Number 3, I'm going to go with Jordan Addison. I think we all expected him to be wide receiver 2 contender, but not only is he doing that, and it looks like he's making some pretty damn good plays out there on the field over the past couple of days, between a couple of really big catches that circulating around Twitter, over in the Twitter sphere online. But not only that, but he's also in the punt return battle as well. It seems like somebody tweeted, I don't even remember who it was, but yesterday morning before practice started, he was one of the 3 guys over there returning punts alongside Jalen. That's right. Yeah. Judd of Score North over there. He tweeted that it was Jalen Reagor, Thayer Thompson, and Jordan Addison returning punts from the Jokes machine. So I do think that this is something that we need to pay attention to, because he underratedly was a pretty damn good punt returner while he was at Pittsburgh. I think during that 2021 season where he went off the rails with those 100 catches, like 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns. He also had 12 punt returns and averaged 15 yards per return. And with Jalen Reagor not really having the greatest year at that spot last season, I do think the Vikings probably are looking to upgrade a little bit there. And Jordan Addison, if he can prove himself there, it seems like that's a good spot to turn to.
I've written about on VikingsTerritory.com Reagor a couple times this offseason, kind of explaining that he's all of a sudden a roster bubble guy.
Yeah.
And the stat that pops out in my mind is out of 32 eligible punt returners, he ranked 31st in punt return yards, like
Yep.
6.4. So on top of the gaffes on offense, which almost doomed the Colts game, then he wasn't a very good punt returner as is. So as a tidbit, revelation of this show, between Addison's mere presence on the team when he's not reckless driving, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, and Jalen Naylor's emergence in the last 2 days, it's like I don't know if there's a spot on the roster for Rager. If there is, great. But Thayer Thomas getting punt return looks. Brandon Powell is basically Jalen Rager. It seems like Rager is going to really have to claw to make this roster. On the whole, I think Addison also owning his big rookie
Yes.
mistake was a big deal. And who did I talk to? I think I talked to Ron Saw on the McKinney show. That Kevin O'Connell almost sounded like somebody's dad when
Yep.
he was talking about Addison. He was like, "I'm very disappointed, and this will never happen again." We've talked to him, and that's kind of the relationship you need to have when somebody's 21 and had a big blunder like that. That could be extremely dangerous. All right, Addison, Jaron Hall, Daniil Hunter's lack of reps but presence there, nonetheless. Who's number 4?
I'm gonna go Johan Williams, the
Boom.
kind of the surprise breakout guy at the starting cornerback spot, opposite of Byron Murphy. It seemed like on Wednesday that was the guy that the Vikings went to, especially for a lot of the starting reps. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense. I'm a little upset that I didn't think about it that much beforehand, because this is a guy. He comes from the Patriots. He's a man coverage type of player. He's massive, 6'3", over 200 pounds, and he fits perfectly in Brian Flores' scheme. And this is kind of a trend that Brian Flores has had over his years, especially while he was in Miami as the head coach. He'd bring in these former Patriot defenders who knew a Bill Belichick-esque scheme already, and they'd throw him into the starting lineup. I think in 2021, he had like 5 former Patriots in his starting lineup, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, Johan Williams looks like he's getting a lot of reps early on in this young cornerback battle where we really have no idea where anything's going to land at the end of training camp. So this is a pretty good development for him.
And he's a former second rounder, correct?
Yeah, second round pick 2019.
Yep. And so that means somebody, the Patriots, believed in him. The only reason I think that you and I and others didn't recognize that he could be the CB2, it's for one reason. It's he was signed in April, about a month
Right.
after free agency. If he would have been in the first bonanza of Josh Oliver, Byron Murphy, boom, Juwan Williams, I think we would have looked at it and been like, oh, okay, this is going to be one of their solutions. But when you get into a month after free agency, 3 or 4 weeks after, those acquisitions feel like throwaways when it's like, oh,
Right.
okay, John Reed. All right. Well, and then, he was waived last week. So you're never quite sure based on the timing if Jawan Williams was going to be a solution or just a camp body. And based on minicamp, he got a run with first teamers. And then now at training camp, 2 days, it seems like he could be the one that is in the driver's seat for CB2. And like you said, it would make sense that we went all off season trying to wonder why the hell they got rid of Duke Shelley, why they didn't go out and get Eli Apple. Why didn't they hedge the bet when maybe they thought Brian Flores, heart of hearts, said, Juwan Williams, that's my guy. Like, I
We
know
already
all
have this
about
guy.
him. Yep.
Yeah.
He's healthy again. He didn't play at all last year. And
Yep.
so if you truly believe in him and believe he can stay healthy, then if the plan all along was to roll with Byron Murphy and Juwan Williams, then, by the way, you've got your rookies that you can wait to mature because, as Mike Zimmer said, these corners always get hurt, and then they would have the time to blossom. But it's something that you'll have to keep an eye on for sure because we know, barring injury, Murphy is going to be a starter. And like you said, the rest is an utter crapshoot. I mean, Mekhi Blackman might be a shoe-in for the slot because there's really no other person to do that other than Byron Murphy. But between Evans, Booth, and Williams, we're all waiting for clarity. All right, your final man who has turned ahead in the first 2 days of training camp.
I'm gonna stick with the corner room, and I'm gonna go with Mekhi Blackman.
Okay.
It seems like he's matching up on Jordan Addison a lot, which presumably would mean that he's throwing in at least with the second teamers and then maybe even the first teamers a few times. So the fact that he's already getting some early reps at the top end of the depth chart, and it seems like he's making Addison work a lot like he did while they were teammates at USC every single day. It was the report that he'd go up to Addison and be the guy that wanted to guard him on every single rep. Just Iron sharpens iron in that situation. So the fact that he's still doing that at Vikings camp, he's not like shying away from the challenge, and he's stepping up in a big way and performing pretty well. I'm going to go Mekhi Blackmon, and hopefully, like you said, maybe he lands that starting slot spot because he's a very physical presence. I think if Brian Flores used him as a blitzer every now and again, I think he'd do pretty well in that role as well. So I think that he's a guy to keep an eye on.
And if it's not Blackmon in the slot, then you ask yourself, well, who is it going to be? Because Chandon Sullivan now plays for the Steelers. And then I guess in theory, on the outside,
I think it could be Byron Murphy, and then you'd
yeah.
throw one of these young guys out on the boundary too, because Andrew Booth, he played boundary his entire career at Clemson. He knows what he's doing out there. Caleb Evans, he knows what he's doing out there. Obviously, we saw him start 2 games for the Vikings out there last year, so I think that they'd be pretty comfortable with him. And you just throw Byron Murphy wherever you need him to go. That's what I think Byron Murphy's such a valuable addition to this defense, because he can play pretty much everywhere in the secondary, and the Vikings need somebody that can play everywhere. So,
and I can't remember if it was you that pointed this out or somebody else on the show. Forgive me. Somebody pointed out in the last few months that most of the productive receivers in the NFC North are slot guys.
They're slot guys.
Yeah. Was that you?
Yep. That was me. Yeah.
All right. And so even if it doesn't technically have CB1, like he's not on a boundary and, not covering like Julio Jones on the edge or something like that, a lot of these productive WRs in the North, run in the slot, and then it makes even more sense why Murphy's on this team. And the funny part, I think I tweeted this way several months ago, is when Mekhi Blackmon and Jordan Addison match up. A, they went to the same school, and B, stature, it's like they're doing the Spider-Man meme. They're both like the same height and weight. So it's going to be tricky to figure out, all right, who's who here, because same school, same stature, they look like the same out on the field. All right, so from head to toe, that's Jaren Hall, Danielle Hunter, who was number 3?
Jordan Addison,
Jawan Williams, and Mekhi Blackmon. And we should be doing cartwheels that 2 of the guys in your estimation have stood out are cornerbacks, because without debate, that is the perceived weak spot on the team. And it'll be really good news if most of these corners that we're not sure about blossom and are ready to go. And it will, and like you said, it will have made sense in retrospect. Like, oh, well, all of these guys are ballers, and we sweated 4 months of the offseason think they're all going to be busts. It would make more sense that's why they didn't go pursue additional cornerbacks. Definitely. All right, my man. So what we're going to do next week, and I've invited the Athletics Alec Lewis to come on the show. He started covering the Vikings about a year ago, and he obliged, and I think he'll join us Tuesday. So I'm going to ask you, sir, to formulate some of your best question. He's got a ground zero view of training camp, so we want to pick his brain. That'll be sometime Tuesday morning, or for the viewer's sake, early Tuesday afternoon. Any closing arguments before we start to watch the second week of Vikings training camp?
No, not really. Just excited to see more Vikings and see what happens over the next couple of weeks here.
I will point out this as we get off air. Every Vikings training camp, especially since Zimmer took over and now O'Connell's there, always has an aura of optimism. But there's something about this one so far that feels a little bit more uplifting. I don't know what it is. Do you agree? Like everything
I do too. Like even it seemed like it was going to get off to a sour note with the Danielle Hunter thing, and then Jordan Addison with the reckless driving. Like, okay, is this just going to be a bust of a camp? But no, so far everybody just seems like they're doing their thing and they're out there playing well. So it's great to see.
Yeah, it is. And again, I'll preface that by saying every training camp for every team is in a honeymoon phase right now. But there's something so far in these, I'll say, since Sunday when rookies reported and Addison apologized. And then the on the field stuff, it seems like, I don't know, there really isn't any bad on the field stuff. I mean, maybe Lewis Seen, not much news about him could be perceived as.
Yeah, I was going to say him and Andrew Booth. Doesn't seem like it's really seen too much of those 2 guys yet. But I mean, if Blackmon comes out and he's a guy that we basically thought Booth was going to be last year, then I mean, you pretty much chalk it up as a win. So
yeah, I hear you. All right, my man, I will chat with you and Alec Tuesday. You have a wonderful weekend.
You too, man. See you then. Take it easy.